Have you ever reflected on how small gestures of affection can transform a relationship? Sometimes, it's the smallest acts that reveal the greatest truths about love. Let me share with you the wisdom of a very experienced lady, whose words have the power to touch hearts and transform lives. In the tranquil town of Napa, California, surrounded by vineyards that stretch as far as the eye can see, lived a lady named Dorothy. At 87 years old, Dorothy was a beloved and respected figure in the community, known for her wisdom, kindness, and the stories she told with a touch of tenderness and understanding. Her white hair, always impeccably styled, and her bright blue eyes sparkled with the serenity of someone who has lived a full and meaningful life. Dorothy lived in a charming country house, surrounded by a lush garden of roses that she tended to with care. The porch of her home offered a magnificent view of the vineyards and the hills in the distance, and it was there that she spent many afternoons reflecting on the stories and lessons that life had provided her. Residents of the city, both young and old, would often come to her in search of advice or simply to hear her stories, which always contained valuable lessons about life and love. One pleasant autumn afternoon, as the golden sun was setting behind the hills and the leaves of the vines began to change color, a young woman named Hannah went to visit Dorothy. Hannah, a woman in her 30s, was worried about something she had recently heard and wanted to discuss it with someone she trusted. "Mrs. Dorothy," Hannah began, her voice filled with hesitation, "I heard that certain acts of intimacy can have a deep meaning, revealing a lot about the relationship between two people. I was told that some women, when they connect deeply with their partners, can create such a strong bond that it is reflected in the way their bodies react. This made me curious and a little insecure. Does this really make a difference in a relationship?" Dorothy, always patient and welcoming, smiled gently at Hannah and invited her to sit with her on the porch, where they could feel the soft breeze of the evening and hear the distant singing of the birds. "My dear," said Dorothy, her voice soft and comforting, "the intimacy between two people goes far beyond physical aspects. What truly matters is the emotional connection, the respect, and the trust that exist between partners. Let me tell you a story that might help you understand this issue better." As the sun slowly hid behind the hills, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, Dorothy began her story. "Many years ago, I met a woman named Grace. Grace was a vibrant person full of life, who always sought to live each moment with intensity and passion. She believed that intimacy was one of the most powerful ways to connect with someone, but she also knew that those moments required much more than mere physical presence. They demanded a true and deep emotional connection." Hannah listened attentively, immersed in the narrative as Dorothy continued. Grace was in a relationship with a man named Samuel. They had a very strong connection and loved each other deeply, but like in any relationship, there were moments of doubt and insecurity. Grace always worried about ensuring that Samuel felt loved and valued, but she also wondered if her actions in intimacy truly reflected the depth of her feelings. One night, after a particularly exhausting day, Grace and Samuel were talking about their experiences and how they could further strengthen the connection they shared. Grace, always sincere and open, expressed her concerns about how certain acts and gestures during intimacy might have a greater impact than she had imagined. "Samuel," she said, her voice filled with affection and sincerity, "I want you to know that I love you deeply, but sometimes I wonder if the things we do in intimacy really express everything I feel for you." Samuel, who had always valued honest communication in their relationship, listened to Grace's concerns with attention and empathy. He knew that the intimacy between them was not just about physical acts, but about how those moments could strengthen the trust and emotional connection they shared. "Grace," he said, holding her hand with tenderness, "what matters most to me is that you feel loved and safe. We can talk about this and find ways to ensure that we both feel fully connected, in every sense." Dorothy paused, allowing the words to resonate in Hannah's mind. Grace and Samuel realized that the key to truly meaningful intimacy lay in open communication and the willingness of both to explore what really worked for them as a couple. For Grace, what truly mattered was knowing that Samuel respected her and that they could talk about anything without fear of judgment or unrealistic expectations. In the days that followed, Grace and Samuel began to explore new ways to connect intimately, always focusing on building a solid emotional foundation. They discovered that, more than any physical gesture, what truly strengthened their relationship was their ability to listen to and support each other, regardless of the circumstances. This meant creating an environment where both felt safe to express their desires and needs. Grace realized that by opening up about her concerns and insecurities, she and Samuel were able to build a mutual trust that deepened their connection even further. They began to realize that true intimacy went beyond the physical, also involving the emotional and spiritual. Samuel, in turn, learned to value these conversations as a way to better understand Grace's feelings and ensure that he was always supporting her in the best way possible. Over time, the honest communication between Grace and Samuel became one of the strongest foundations of their relationship. They realized that by openly discussing their concerns and desires, they could create an environment where both could be vulnerable without fear. This shared vulnerability strengthened the trust between them, making every moment together more meaningful and profound. Hannah, absorbing Dorothy's words, began to see her own concerns from a new perspective. "So, Mrs. Dorothy," she said, her voice now more assured, "what really matters is communication and the willingness to respect each other's feelings and boundaries, right?" Dorothy nodded, a serene smile lighting up her face. "Exactly, my dear. Each person is unique, and each relationship has its own dynamics. The true secret to a fulfilling and satisfying intimate life lies in the ability to communicate openly, to listen, and to respect each other's needs and boundaries. When both partners are committed to caring for one another, intimacy becomes an experience that strengthens the relationship." In the months that followed, Hannah reflected deeply on the story of Grace and Samuel. She realized that her own insecurities about intimacy were largely the result of external expectations and fears that did not reflect the reality of her relationship. Hannah decided that, instead of worrying about what others might think or the expectations of others, she would focus on strengthening communication and trust with her partner, ensuring that both felt safe and loved. Dorothy, seeing how Hannah had grown in her understanding of love and intimacy, felt fulfilled. The wisdom she shared was not just an echo of her own experience, but a tool to help others find their own truths. Hannah, now more confident and connected with herself and her partner, became an advocate for open communication and mutual respect in her own circles. Dorothy's house, with its view of the vineyards and welcoming garden, continued to be a refuge for those seeking guidance. The stories told there resonated with everyone who heard them, planting seeds of understanding, trust, and genuine love. And so, life in Napa went on with its ups and downs, but with the certainty that amid the challenges, there were people like Dorothy and Hannah, who, with their stories and examples, showed the true meaning of a deep and respectful connection between two souls. If this story resonated with you and you believe in the importance of communication and trust in relationships, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. We are in this journey of discovery and growth together. Until next time.